When I started in roofing, I used to use this black notebook. I'm writing all my addresses down. And then I realized like I'm missing opportunities because of the way that I process this information. So I started using an app called All Trails. And I realized that this technology advances my strategy. And it would show everywhere they drove, and we could really create our own map. And we're able to crush it with that tech. And I'm like, man, there's not a lot of great technology that's in the industry.
Welcome to another episode of High Stakes with Steve Rozenberg. Of course, I am Steve Rozenberg. You're not. Great to see everybody here, all the listeners, followers. If you're not following this podcast has come back after a 2-year hiatus, had some personal tragedies in my life, and I took a break. But I decided to start it up again because I think there's a lot of cool people out there that you all need to meet that may not be in your circle of influence. And sometimes, if I can bring them into your world and you can meet them virtually and, maybe someone you can follow or be a part of their lives. Cause, what I've learned is I have met some pretty cool people in my life and some pretty interesting people because of this show. And I think that's what it's all about. I think life is about relationships. I think life is about who you meet on the journey. I don't think there is a destination, kind of like a shark swimming. We don't stop, right? And as entrepreneurs, I don't think we stop either. I think that we're all on a path. Sometimes chapters begin and chapters end, just like in a book. High school is a chapter, college, 20s, 30s, 40s were chapters for people. Chapters begin and chapters end, and some chapters are good, some chapters are tragic. But I do think that we have to close a chapter and move on to the next level. I got a gentleman on today. Josey Parks is here. He's kind of got a chapter that he is starting, I guess you could say. And I think it's an awesome journey that he's doing. So I reached out to him and said, hey, man, I'd love to get you on the podcast. Let's talk about what you're doing. You're kind of doing something more purpose-driven. And I wanted to hear more about it and kind of talk about what he's got coming up. So, Josey, thanks for being here, brother. Appreciate it, man.
Hey, excited to be here. And thanks to this podcast, we got to meet here. So
yeah, absolutely, man. So just so if people don't know who you are, just give the quick 10,000 foot bio of yourself.
Yeah. So I'm from the great state of Texas, and I've been in the roofing industry since I was 18. So, 18 years been in this industry. Been married for 11 years now. I've got 4 beautiful children. And, my mission is to bridge blue collar to technology. I want to help, us level up the industry. And, I believe that as a human, our greatest benefit to society is us building one another up. And so it's, a big focus for me. And so I've got, Win the Storm Conference, obviously. I've got a tech-enabled roofing company. I do data center development and Bitcoin mining. Then I have an AI company called Think Unlimited, which we match the right rep to the right appointment. And that's huge in the home service space. And most of my, work is all home services. And so that's a little bit about me there.
So, I got a lot of questions here, man. You're obviously tech heavy and you like technology. And I'm a big believer that if you're not staying up with the times, you're 1000% getting left behind. It's kind of like saying I advertise in the yellow pages, right? It's like even our phones. I talk to people, we have phones. We wouldn't even think of using a phone that was 5 years ago, God forbid, 10 years ago. But then I ask entrepreneurs, like, are you using the same techniques to market, to sell, to run your business that are maybe 10 or 20 years old? You wouldn't use your phone that way, but yet you'd run your business that way. Is the reason you're starting this and not starting this, but the reason you do this, is it because you see a gap in the industry and in the world, or what makes you so focused on doing this?
Well, when I started in roofing, I used to use this black notebook, and, I'm writing all my addresses down. And then I realized like I'm missing opportunities because of the way that I process this information. So I started using an app called All Trails. I don't know if you've heard of All Trails. Yeah. It's like I was using that in 2011 when it was every trail. And that's what I'd have my reps sign into. And I realized that this technology advances my strategy. I want to know when a hailstorm hits, what all roofs were impacted, where's the actual swath. So I'd have them sign in and it would show everywhere they drove, and we could really create our own map and intel and then drop pins. And so that technology advanced my strategy, and we're able to crush it with that tech. And I'm like, man, there's not a lot of great technology that's in the industry. And so I was just trying to build it for myself, and I expanded and started leveraging a certain product for contractors as well. But I really think that there's technology for good and then for bad. And so a lot of people tend to focus on the bad aspects of technology, whereas it's like this can augment human performance to where it's like this can enhance us, but it can also take low level tasks that we're doing and it can automate it. So like my product, for instance, we save a sales manager 2 hours a day assigning appointments. So that sales manager has 2 hours to pour back into his guys versus sitting there looking at each home, looking at Zillow, looking at all these different criteria, which a lot do. But that just bought 2 hours of his time. And this intelligence is so much better than humans because it can look at 150 different attributes, and it can predict how much revenue each appointment will generate. Humans we can't do that. And so that's just like a small example of what this technology can do. But I also feel like it's also controlling us. So the bad, people are slaves to their device. We're slaves to instant gratification. And there's so much now that people aren't willing to put in the time it takes to build something meaningful, and nothing of value is immediate. And so that's where I believe, in technology, but for good. And also I push back against the overlords, the tech overlords. And so I don't want them to own this industry, our industry. And so that's why I feel like we have to create our own solutions in tech for good.
It's funny. You mentioned the 2 hours. I'm a big believer. Maybe I'm more old school. I'm a big believer in virtual assistants is what I'm comfortable with.
Yeah.
60% of our company was outsourced to Mexico when we sold it in 2019. And I think virtual assistants, AI, it's just a leverage tool, right? When you look at what it is, it's a mechanism to leverage your time. And you mentioned 2 hours a day, and someone may go, well, that's not a lot. Well, if you take 2 hours a day, extrapolate it out to 5 days a week, that's now 10 hours times 4 weeks. That's 40 hours. So ask yourself, what could a salesperson do with 40 hours of more time to sell? If they get just one job, I'm guessing that probably covers a pretty hefty chunk. But think about that. That is one full week of, if it was a 40-hour work week, which not many people do, but if it was a 40-hour work week, that's one extra week. So it's like you're giving everybody 5 weeks a month of product. Like when you start thinking of when you're saying that, I was like, yeah, that is what's called leverage. It's kind of like saying I could walk to New York and it would take me 3 months, or I could drive there and it would take me 3 days. That's leverage. Let me ask you this because I want to talk about your big conference coming up. But before we do, how do you get people past the mindset of them saying, and I hate when people talk about like, oh, I'm just a dumb roofer, I'm just a contractor. It's like, no, you're a human. Like, use your brain. Like, don't use defeating words that put yourself down to make yourself sound dumb and think it's okay. Like, it's not okay. You're a person. Use your brain. How do you get people to overcome that? It's not really imposter syndrome, but the self-defeating of, oh, I don't use technology, I'm not a tech guy or whatever like that, to use it to their advantage, or do you do that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I did the IRE keynote in 2024. And so, it was awesome to be there. And a lot of that demographic, it was a bit older. People have been in the industry for quite some time. And so I made them do an exercise, and I had everyone play rock, paper, scissors to see the winner. And then the winners stayed standing. And basically I was like, look, if you're not focused on the future and how you can leverage technology and AI, it's essentially whoever just won, you have a cell phone and you're competing with the other person that has a pager. It's like, that is the difference of you leveraging this technology. So you're going to be completely disrupted You're going to be outdated, and all of the business that you've invested in and built and the foundation that you have, just because you're not wanting to integrate new technologies into it, you're going to get disrupted. And you've done an incredible job to build the business, and now you're just going to let it go because I've tried that. It didn't work. No, like you have to have an R&D budget. I was a $15 million company at the time, and I had an R&D budget. Like I had interns from UTA that were working on AI with me, and I didn't have a clue what I was doing, but I was like, man, I want to build something meaningful. And that's what I feel like contractors have to do. We have to have the growth mindset, and so many people have fixed mindset. That's literally one or the other. And so that's really, like, I always tell people, it's like, hey dude, you got a pager and I got a cell phone, who's gonna win? And that to me is like the easiest way for people to understand it.
Yeah, I like that analogy. You've got to break it down to its most simplistic form, right? Of that. Let me ask you this. So when you've obviously been an entrepreneur and had businesses come and go, buy and sell and all those things, is there a decision at any point in your career that you would pinpoint back to go, that is the most pivotal decision I have ever made in my life, good or bad? What is one of those things that you always, like, the first thing that comes to mind, you're like, that was one?
Yeah, I would say a company that I purchased. I started a construction company building hotels, didn't know anything about it. And the GM who I had running it he got me to invest in a concrete business. And like, to me, like getting into a field that I didn't have expertise or knowledge in, because all I had done before that was residential metal roofing, custom fabricated all of our roofs. I got the coils, had the slitter, had the folder, had the panel machines. So I custom made all of our roofs. So I was really good with operations and production and all of that. But I got into commercial. And so that taught me so much about, getting involved with industries I don't understand.
Right.
And I lost, millions and millions of dollars by the age of 30 because I had invested in a construction business, which then said, hey, we need a concrete business. And so we can better control our schedule. And the reason I trusted those people is because they had, a long tenure in the industry. So I just believe they knew. But, being focused on industries that you really understand and not chasing shiny object syndrome and like seeing the money and the opportunities and chasing those. I mean, but that to me is like still one of like the biggest lessons learned, in which, I've made similar mistakes in other ways, but what I like to say is just charge it to the game. But that's really what it is like, what you really know is like your profession, be the absolute best at that, and don't allow distractions to come in unless it's a calling, unless you feel called, like this is my purpose, this is part of the plan God has for my life. Then it's just a shiny object syndrome.
Yeah, I think that, I've asked this question to a lot of people, and normally the biggest lesson, as we all know, is in our failures. We barely remember our wins, right? We barely remember maybe the emotional pull of when we did something, but there was no lesson to be learned. That was the results of the hard lessons we learned from our failures. And I always think about the reason we make, and I can't speak for you, I can speak for myself. It's the ego, right? A lot of it is like, we want it, like, this guy thinks I'm smart, that I should start a contracting, concrete business. And I'm not sure if that's what you said, but I think sometimes deep down we kind of go like, yeah, man, I don't want to, like, I can do this. I'm an entrepreneur. At least I know that's when I have failed in the past, is I've made decisions based on my ego because this guy thinks I'm somebody, and I don't want to prove him wrong. I want to prove him right. And unfortunately, I get out of my lane, and every time I've gotten out of my lane, it just smacks you right back in, man. And it's, it hurts, I will say, but that's the lessons we learn, right?
Yeah. I mean, I just thought it was easy money. And so I'm like, oh yeah, we can do $8 to $10 million in concrete. Yeah, let's freaking do it. But the lesson is like, whenever you have someone, you delegate the responsibility of your business. Cause I was the majority. I was buying him out and taking over the business. But he wasn't like us. He wasn't someone that's a go-getter.
Sure.
He had some personal problems going on, and I didn't know any of that. And so also thinking that like people are going to hold themselves to the same standards that you do. And that was like, I've bought like 6 businesses now. And what I've learned is like, man, like they don't have the same level of intensity, and I'm not buying the right type of people. And so I've learned hard lessons on that as well. And I mean, we're in the people business. At the end of the day,
Sure.
it's all about people.
Yeah.
And, I'm very fortunate now. I have 5 CEOs that, work for my businesses. And, I like to give equity in all of my businesses
Yeah.
and sharing the upside. But, it's taken so many 18 years to freaking understand how to properly hire people and vet companies and all that. So it's been a long time.
And I think it's an evolution, right? I don't think you're ever set, right? The day
Not,
you think you figured it out is the day you get punched in the face by not knowing.
yeah.
So let's talk about the conference you have. You have Win the Storm, right? You want to,
Yep.
for the listeners, let everyone know what it is, when it is, so that they know, because it's coming up pretty quick, and what it's about.
Yeah, so it's August 20th through the 22nd in Dallas, Texas at the Convention Center. And it's a place for growth minded contractors. Whether you're roofing, solar, windows, any type of home improvement product, or commercial roofing contractors, commercial contractors. And, we have keynote speakers. So we have main stage and we have vendor floor. And on the vendor floor, we have 5 breakout stages. And we're just focused on things that the industry needs more of, right? So we want to have conversations that are moving the needle. We want actionable insights. And so I personally curate all the speakers, all the panels to make sure when people leave, they leave changed. And that's my focus for them. And a network of people that they can go to whenever you're facing some issue in your business. A lot of times you can't really talk to all the people you work with, or the people in your market. You don't want to tell them all your garbage or all the success. So it's good to find brothers and sisters, people that you can go to and rely on and share the wins and share the battles with. And that's been such a huge impact on my life, because I went to my first event in 2010 to IRE, and I met this guy there, Steve Little, who just opened my eyes to the possibilities. There's another guy I met named Derek Lindsay as well. He's still big in the industry, but it set me on a trajectory. I started thinking bigger. And so when you get in these rooms and you're around these other players that are doing like really big things, you're like, I can do it too. And so it forces you to think bigger, and you meet people along the way that are all part of your journey.
I love what you said about the community, because, as entrepreneurs, we may not say it out loud, but we're kind of on an island, right? There's that when you lay your head on the pillow at night, it's just you. There's no one else.
Yeah.
You and your thoughts.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer that when you wake up the next day, you have one decision to make when you open your eyes. I call it the 0 moment. And that decision is I'm going to be better, or I'm going to be worse than the day before. And if you don't make a decision, indecision is a decision. You've decided.
Totally.
And it's nice to have a community instead of an island, where you're kind of going like, am I doing this all wrong? And am I, risking my family and my family's future and my livelihood on an idea that, it's like I'm golfing in the dark here. I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know the course. I don't know where the sand traps are. I don't even know where the boundaries are. And I'm still swinging away, and I'm getting tired. And I think that what you're doing, I think, is great, because having a community of people, like-minded peers that have no skin in the game, whether you succeed or not, except for the fact that they just want to see you better. Like, I think at the end of the day, as entrepreneurs, we're just using contracting, roofing, real estate people use real estate, tech people use tech. I think at the end of the day, we're just using that as a vessel to build a better life, to have time, as we talked about earlier, have time with our families. And I think sometimes we get so caught up in identifying as the task that we're trying to do, we forget about the result we're trying to accomplish. And I think the community does that. And I think it's great that you're doing that.
It's our 4th pillar. It's pillar number 1, community.
That's awesome. I didn't know that. I think that's great. So when they leave there, you want them to have a sense of community, being a part of something. What else do you want them to have? Obviously, there's going to be a lot of people there. There's going to be a lot of vendors and trades and sponsors. Like, what is it? What are the other things you want them to have?
So, the focus are actionable insights. So it's like actionable information they can take and apply in their business immediately. But the main thing is your mindset. Like our objective and our goal and our mission is to make sure people leave change. Like that's why I tell every speaker, anyone that's going up there, like, look, whatever you're talking, like people need to have the action to leave change. And
Yep.
so that's a big focus for us. So like our first year was mental toughness. So I had James Lawrence and Tim Grover there as some of my keynote speakers. And that is all about mental toughness because you have
Yep.
to have a tough mind. But when storms come, a lot of people break down.
Yeah.
They hit that wall and they just turn around. And so this year's theme is steady in the storm. We want to be the buffalo, right? So the only animal in the animal kingdom that charges the storm is the buffalo.
Yeah.
And so we want to be steady in the storm to move past it. So we're going to have a lot of conversations about, failures and how they leveled up past the failure. And we want to share wins, and obviously that's great, but it's like more focused on like, look, how do we build a resilient mind? It's not just a strong mind, but resilient that can endure and continue. And so that's really, we want to have these growth minded individuals and rally them to a rally cry. Like you have to be the change in your community. So when you leave here, this community here is going to support you, but you're going to go back and you're going to serve your community. By you being a better version of yourself, your family is going to be better. Your business is going to be better, and you're going to serve your community better than ever before. And that is what we're focused on, is really no one's coming to save us. The government's not saving your community. You're leading the charge. And that was a focus last year. We had 164 companies commit to community service. And I said on stage, like, someone's going to get national news attention. We're going to like get this out where contractors, we are good. And we had one company, Ohm Restoration. And I mean, it was awesome. They got huge news coverage on what they were doing to serve their community after a storm. And that's what we want more of. So this year I want 500 companies committed to community service and being the change. And what was crazy, Steve, is like, with our survey, 124 of those companies had never done community service as an organization before. And so like for me, dude, that's like the greatest accomplishment.
Yeah. That's awesome. It's funny you were talking about that, and being my background being an airline pilot, the one thing that we are trained constantly, I mean, almost every single time we fly, we talk about the worst thing that could happen, which in a flying perspective is having an engine fail right at rotation on takeoff. And a Boeing 777, we hold about 380 passengers, 700,000 pounds. It's a big plane.
Yeah.
But we mentally walk through the emergency. We are assuming it is going to happen. We are walking through, hey, if we go down and at rotation, we lose an engine, we're going to go up, we're going to clean the engine up, we're going to secure it, we're going to run checklists. And Boeing has trained us to always work the problem to the solution, work the solution.
Yeah.
And so we practice it. We go into the simulators every 6 months and we train exactly on all the emergencies that could happen. And as I'm coaching entrepreneurs or speaking on stages, I say, who thinks they're going to have an engine failure or an engine fire in their business? Everyone raises their hand. I'm like, who here practices it every day and prepares? And they don't. I'm like, so it's going to happen. You don't have an emergency checklist for your business. One of your roofers falling off a roof, somebody dying, somebody getting into a car accident, cyber theft, all these things could happen. But the difference between airline pilots and who I'm talking to is we plan on it to happen. You're just hoping and praying it never does. And as you said, being the buffalo that runs into the storm, they're prepared for it. They're not just saying, God, I didn't think that was going to happen after 30 years in the business. Yeah. But everyone is going to have their emergency. Everyone's going to have their engine failure, their fire, their drama. Yeah. And the ones that are going to succeed, I tell entrepreneurs all the time, if you're asking who's in charge in the middle of emergency, it's you. And you're doing a pretty shitty job of it because you are not taking control of the situation, because as the owner, everyone is looking to you saying, hey, boss, are we going to be okay? Like, is everything? And, little eyes are watching you. And so I just think it's interesting that I think it's great that you're doing that because, economic times are good. Economic times are bad. In the same environment, same year, different cities, you have two different environments going on, right? One's a storm, one's not. but it's the leader that's going to run that ship, that's going to run that operation that the people are looking at. So the fact that you're doing that, I think is freaking awesome, because everyone is going to have that emergency and they're going to need that community for someone to go, hey man, you're good. Like just keep moving forward. So I think it's great you're doing that.
Yeah. And especially, you think about the landscape right now. I mean, there's so many roofing crews and other trades with, ice and the raids and everything that's happening, which we didn't think that was going to be a thing for our businesses, but it is, and it's real. And that's like a new focus for them. They're leaving hospitality and farming alone, but now they're saying construction is the greatest threat. And like, that's their focus. And it's like, dude, what the heck?
Yeah.
And so there's immigration, there's private equity coming in, changing the landscape. There's technology that's disrupting businesses. And so there's a lot of storms coming, and like, how do we equip ourselves? And it's the belief. What do we believe about ourselves? What do we believe about our employees? And who do we believe we can become through this? And like, it's such a principle that is not talked about enough. And that's really what we want to do, is make sure people are ready for it.
It's funny. I always tell people, like when somebody buys a product, they're not buying, if you want to buy a nice shirt, you're not buying the shirt, you're buying the identity that you're going to have wearing that shirt, the person you are. So I tell people, if you want to build a $10 million business, it's not the $10 million business you're buying the identity of being the $10 million CEO. So you have to become that person first before you can ever build the business that the revenue is trailing. That's the result. It's who you are first that's going to lay the foundation. The foundations, you don't see it. They're the hardest thing to build. They're dirty. It's hard work. And once it's built, the foundation is covered with dirt and you don't even see it anymore. But the foundation is always there because the structure could never be built without the foundation. Yeah. And so with these entrepreneurs, with roofers, I tell people, like, you're going to have your storms. You're going to have your problems. The question to me is, how deep and how thick is your foundation? Yeah. Because the foundation will dictate how successful you are. Yeah. And like you said, this year it's ice. Last year, maybe it's hyperinflation. There is always going to be a challenge. I do think there's always a solution, though. I think that, listen, I mean, there are some things. Staffing obviously is a problem, and that's the problem we're facing today. Yeah. I'm always asking, what's the solution? Because there's always a solution to every problem. Yeah. We just maybe haven't thought of it yet. Maybe it's AI. Maybe it's, I don't know the answer, but I always ask myself, ask a different set of questions, you'll get a different set of answers. Totally. And it may not be as easy as you and I just talking and coming up with this answer, but I do think being around other like-minded people, having this conversation, like I'm sure you're going to have at Win the Storm, I would guess there's going to be some things out there that you're going to go, that's actually not a bad idea. I didn't think about that. Yeah. And it just takes one person to come up with the idea to go, that's the game changer. It just takes one. And so the answer's there. We just don't know it yet, in my opinion. We have to make decisions today as if we're who we want to be in the future. So coming to an event like this, like what we're creating, one idea, one strategy, one connection, one vendor, it takes one thing to completely change and break through whatever that problem was you're facing. And by talking with someone else about your problem, they're going to be like, oh yeah, man, I dealt with that 3 years ago. Here's what you do. And like the thing is people want to give back. They want to share what they've learned. They want to be value add. And so that's where I believe, and that's, the reason I bought it, is because I want to professionalize our industry. There's a lot of gurus. There's a lot of people that talking on social media that are, at the end of the day, a lot are selling courses, and it's not like really trying to build something meaningful. And we have to be the change that we want to see. So I bought this event because I believe in this industry, and I want to see it succeed. I want people in the professional roofing that do retail to look at the storm industry as a professional industry. And we want to merge these together and make it a much bigger community. And that's the focus. Yeah. It's all about making change, man. It's all, and like you said, the one thing I will tell you, in my opinion, when people go to these conferences, and again, this is just my opinion, if you're watching this, is don't go there without a specific goal. Like
Mhm.
go there with a specific goal of saying, I want to meet, 5 people to increase my revenue 30% in the next 6 months. They're called SMART goals, but go there with intention, right?
Yeah.
Go there for a reason of, and you said something I think is important is that you may get some information from someone who's not even a roofer. It could be a vendor that's not even in your industry that tells you something. So keep your eyes open, ask different questions, you'll get different answers. If you go there only to talk to other roofers and there's vendors out there, you never know what one conversation, stopping at a vendor booth, talking to someone going, that's not in my industry, but I could take that idea and that could be the $1 million idea I need that's not even related to my industry. So my point is be open when you come to Wind the Storm and you start talking to people. You never know who has that knowledge or life experience that's standing in front of you, because everybody comes with years, a lifetime of knowledge and experience. You just got to be open to receiving it.
Yeah.
I've got a question though. So you purchased Wind the Storm. Is just out of curiosity, I'm guessing there's a reason instead of you just starting your own conference, Wind the Storm's a big conference. It's very well known. It's been around. Was there a strategic reason to keeping the name going as opposed to starting a new one?
No, for me, when I purchased it, it would have been a lot cheaper to just start my own.
Right.
And, all the bad past and all the people, this happened, that. But for me, like with the name Wind the Storm, we all face storms in life, personally, professionally, emotionally, financially. So like Wind the Storm was more of like a rally cry. And also I wanted to show like, it doesn't matter where you're at. You can always make a decision today to change the future. And that's, everyone that was like, I'm never going to that event again because some past stuff that happened, so many never agains were there our first year.
That's cool.
And so it's cool to show like the restoration, the healing that we can bring about. And, we're strongly considering a name change and for the future and what we're building. And it's just, I really like the name Win the Storm. Like I actually love that name because we all want to win, but there's certain people, it's like, well, for you to win, someone has to lose. And I'm like, nah, win-win, baby. Everybody's got to win. But yeah, we actually are strongly considering a name change right now.
Yeah, I could see both sides to it. I mean, I've spoken at prior Win the Storms, and I've made some great relationships. I think you get out of things what you put in. It's like I was at the same event, and people may say, "Oh, I didn't have any success, or it wasn't a good event." I'm like, "Well, I was at the same event, and I have a completely different perspective." So it could be one of us maybe are thinking differently, right? It's the same. We both heard the same speaker, but we both got something different out of it. So that tells me it's what we are wanting out of it. Maybe I was asking myself different questions. I mean, I've been at other events, and I'm sure as you have, you go, I didn't jive with that one. I didn't get anything out of that. But maybe that wasn't for me at that moment in my life, and that wasn't for me for what I was needing at that time. So I do like the name because, especially the way you said it, it's kind of like Win Your Storm. Yeah. It's kind of like you're going to have a storm in your life, whatever it is. Yeah. You've got to win, and I for the people that say someone has to win and someone has to lose, I think it's at some point you've got to want it more than anyone else. Like you've got to want to win. I don't think there's anything wrong with winning. I mean, you play football. Not everybody wins in the Super Bowl. One team wins. Everyone else loses. Yeah. If you want to be the best, you've got to win for your values. It doesn't mean someone loses. It just means they're not winning for what's important for you is not important for them. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. That's called life,
Yeah. Well, Steve, to your point, setting the intention. There's someone on my board. His name's Raymond Little. I don't know if you know him or not. Just a fantastic dude. Just such an incredible story. Started straight out of prison. Started as a canvasser. Ended up starting his own company. And he would go to Win the Storm. So years back, he would go to the breakouts, and that's where he would build his strategy for his company. Then he started getting success, and he started bringing his reps with him. Then they would all break out, and then they would all share notes. He would rent, Lambos and Porsche and all these, and it was like a great experience for his team. And they were focused. They were working out together early in the morning, going to the event, doing some nice, cool activities at night. he never experienced what everyone else was talking about with the old Win the Storm.
Right.
He's like, I never saw any of that. I never experienced any of that. He's like, because I was clear on my goals and what I was doing with my team and what I demanded of my team there. And like, we don't party, we don't drink, we don't do any of that. And so it was just clear. And so he grew his business. It's almost a 9-figure business. And he's like, dude, I got my strategies at Win the Storm. And so that's the power of it. And it's the power of a clear intention and what you're going to get out of it.
100%, man. You listen, you know, you can go to the gym and do nothing and someone else is there and they're getting ready for a competition and you're like, same weights, same time I've been there, but they had a different intention. So it's like in anything in life, right? I think that that's a great point of there's good and bad in anything in life, right? And I think we have a choice to make as, are we going to be, you know, big boys and girls when we go to these events, and are we going there to learn something to better our lives? Or are we going there to get away from a life that we don't want to have and to go party or whatever it is? But that's your choice, you know? Yeah. So I super excited about.
There's a lot of that. I was gonna say, there's still, you know, people that when they go to events, they like to do that. And it's like, you can't control other people, but clearly what we're both agreeing on is like, but you have control, and you go in and you make that conscious effort in what you're going to do. And it's going to change your life. Like
I agree. And for those of you that are thinking of going, man, I tell you what, just if anything, just to go to look for new solutions, just go there and just go there with that one thing. I'm looking for solutions. And, you know, I have learned people will bitch and complain about a problem for months and months. It takes a second to make a decision to change. It takes 1 second to say enough is enough. And, you know, I speak on this a lot of times at events, and I'm like, everybody wants to complain until you get to that point. And people just aren't, some people are not to that point. It's kind of like when you eat a lot of food over Christmas and then you put your pants on in January, like, that's it, I'm going on a diet, enough's enough. People are just not at that point. And I'm like, you need to make a decision to cut away all options. Decision, the root word is incision, which is to cut away all options and go directly in. Yeah. People just haven't made the decision to be successful, because once you make that decision and you're like, that's it. It's kind of like if you decide I'm not a drinker. Like I've got it real quick. I got a guy that I coach. I actually just kind of help him out as a favor. And he says, man, I'm 155 days not drinking. And I said, are you proud of that? And he's like, yeah. I said, I wouldn't be proud of that. He's like, what do you mean? I go, because by you saying 155 days of not drinking tells me you're a drinker. You're just waiting for a fuck up. And I'm like, what you should say is, I don't drink. I don't drink. That's it. That is my identity, is I don't drink anymore. So I'm going off task here, but my point is go to these events with the identity that I'm a successful person. I am an entrepreneur. I'm changing the direction of my life and maybe my family's lives as a result of actions that I'm taking today.
Yep.
And I think you'll get a lot more success out of these events than just saying, I'm going to go out there and, you know, blow a couple grand and, you know, drink and hang out and maybe stumble in hungover to an event. It's like, you're really not helping anybody. You're not helping yourself. You're not helping the event. You're not helping your family, your business. I mean, I'm not going to say don't go because it's obviously a ticket sale, but I would say you're not being intentional. And I think that to get the most out of these, I mean, there are millions and millions of dollars, just like you said, of knowledge and education at these events, if you just go there with that intention. And you'd be shocked at what you could survive. And I know you know this as well.
Yeah. Well, and people are like, oh, I've already been, I don't do events anymore. It's just like, dude, there's no money in events. So like, for me, like, don't worry about me. Like, I'm good. Worry about you. Focus on you and how you can get the information that you're desiring. Because a lot of people, they don't know what to do. They're really stuck and they're just working in their business constantly. They're on that hamster wheel. And it's like, for them, they're just kind of broken. And I feel like there's a lot of broken people in the world. And we know that. And like, you want to find a community of people where it's like, they can take you from where you're at and you make that decision to where you want to go. But you can't do it with the same thinking that's got you here. You're limited based on your thinking. And that's really, you just want to be in that environment, in that room. So I'm excited, you know, for all those that commit to it, because there's going to be value and action that you take from this event that's going to change the game.
I love it, man. I love it, Josey. Well, Josey, thanks for coming on, man. It's been great meeting you. Again, tell everybody the dates and how they can find the information on Win the Storm so they can.
Yeah, it's August 20th through the 22nd in Dallas, Texas at the Convention Center. You can just go to winthestorm.com. And so it's all the information there. And right now there's a 40% discount that's about to end. And so it's incredible value for a growth-minded individual. And so it's a huge discount for you. So go get it.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, guys, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys got something out of this. Again, you know, Josey and I were talking obviously about Win the Storm, his big conference coming up. But again, this is life. This is relatable to everything that you do. This is a guy who's playing high stakes. He doesn't need to do this conference, right? I'm sure he could live his life just fine without needing to do this. And his life doesn't change. His Monday doesn't change, whether he comes on this show and shares his knowledge, whether he shows up at this conference, does it or doesn't do it. It's not going to change his life. But the thing is it will change yours. Yeah. And whether you go or not, it will change yours. If you don't go, I don't know what it will change it to. If you go, I know that it will change it for the better. So make the decision, go to the event, meet some new friends, meet some old acquaintances, and learn something new and walk away with a different perspective and win your storm in life, win the storms, because we cannot change what happens to us. We can't stop that. The only thing we can do is we can stop how we react, and we can change that based on once that happens. So just think about that. And if you get something out of the conference, then hey, if you ever meet Josey in person, go up and shake his hand and say, man, thank you. Like, you changed my life. Because that's what people like myself and people like Josey, that's what we like doing. We're here to change lives. We're not here for the money. There's other things that we could do to make a lot more money. I will tell you that right now. It is all about making change and making impact. So everybody, on behalf of Josey and myself, High Stakes with Steve Rozenberg, thank you all so much, and we will catch you next episode. Talk to you guys later.
Everybody.